Investors have an impact have many different reasons for showing up, and there's something called investor contribution. And for philanthropy is what is your role as a mission investor or philanthropy to be doing impact. And I think this is a very inspiring place to hear what are some of the really cutting edge ways of using your assets differently. And it's also a great place for really, I'm not going to use the word networking, but seeing people that you may have talked to but haven't met, seeing people that you've known over the years, deepening relationships. So I think it's not just the relationship part, but I really think the sessions are they're extremely high quality. This is the first time that MIE held a professional gathering for IMM. And that's significant because a number of the industry of measurement for impact investing has been really deepening and growing. So a number of the people at the conference here are people who are very connected to the measurement and management part of the world. By having the first gathering, which was like a standing room only room, the group of us that was the steering committee now have to figure out like where do we take this? Like what did people want from this? And we have an agenda because we're passionate about the importance of measuring impact and managing for impact. We have an agenda of trying to elevate it, integrate it into the life cycle of investing. So my takeaway is that there's keen interest, that people are coming from different places. There's advanced, there's on-ramp. And how can MIE bring that more into, I know they're building a library, but we're going to offer whatever, Melanie said we can call it whatever, lunch talks, gatherings, maybe an in-person event. So we're going to figure out like what's some realistic next steps. The challenges, interestingly enough, are not very different than what the nonprofit community went through in general in the 90s, when suddenly they needed to stop measuring performance outputs, and everyone was asking for a theory of change, a logic model, and everyone was asking for measurement of outcomes. And it's much easier to measure inputs and outputs, how much housing stock you created, for instance, how many seats you've created in a charter school, for instance, than it is to measure how have you changed the lives of people and how have you changed equity, have you changed systems and policies. So the challenges are what's the right size for the impact investing market. Many people in my early days when I got involved in this and I was moving toward how do you measure impact investing, and I had really worked with philanthropy on their grant and program side, which was very built out, funded, budgets, professionals. In the early days, people would say, don't even use words like evaluation. Like, why is it called IMM and not evaluation? There's an evaluation industry that's been growing since the 1950s that is focused on well-being, people and planet. So why did the impact investing world create its own measurement system? And I think it's like a reaction. We don't want to get really scientific. We don't want all the costs, but that actually is not the way the social sector works in general. There's so much good feedback and learning mechanisms that are not, they're not a huge burden. And I think that it's a lot of misconception. And then the demand side of it, which is really not different than in the nonprofit world. The demand side is we are not asking for too much validation of impact. If you tell us this fund has an intention to have impact and you have an impact thesis and you did good due diligence on the front end, we're done. And the world, that's why the impact measurement added the second M, management, is once the investment is made, monitoring the impact and actually working together to make sure that the impact is happening or making adjustments. And I just need to say that I'm not going to pick out one company, but there are companies developing that are doing rapid feedback surveys that are very easy and inexpensive. So the ability to actually gather feedback from the end user, from the customers, has become much easier. And I think those are the issues. And finally, of course, cost. There's not an incentive. There's an incentive to have financial performance, but there's not a compensation for the impact performance generally. My advice is just get started. Like, really, first of all, I will say that an investor would want to consult with a legal counsel, with financial counsel, have strong accounting practices. There are things that would be non-negotiable, not unthinkable not to have that. So and I'm an advisor, so I founded an evaluation company, I sold it, and now I do the work that I really care about in the world. So I'm not saying this to be self-serving. I'm really saying this, that there are professionals growing that could provide some very good advice on what is the right-sized way to do this, and then who in the investment company would, or the family office or wherever, would be the right person to put that into their job, or to outsource it. So I would say just get started. Recognize there is some expertise, like there is in other parts of the investment world, but to take advantage of the professional societies and the professionals who are offering services, and right-size it. You don't have to do a very intense measurement and evaluation work, but having some ways of finding out, are you making the difference, is at the heart of impact investing.